Okay, we'll get the meeting called to order, and we'll go ahead and open up with Jeff. Consideration of approval of substantial completion of emergency department renovation project.
Yes, it's been a long time coming, but on October 30th, we received the fire marshal occupancy, so that's one of the main criteria is to get substantial completion. The med gas system will be approved tomorrow officially. We've had two different vendors already look at it and say, yeah, this will pass with no problem. So that's kind of another one to use that we have to have. So that'll be done tomorrow. All the testing we've done has been very positive and meets every standard we have. Tentatively, an open house is planned for the 18th of November. It's a Monday. From 2 to 4 o'clock will be employees, 4 to 6 o'clock will be the public, and 6 to 7 will be EMS to come in and talk through flows and procedures and everything there. There's some mind rate training, the patient monitoring that will occur on the 19th, and then we'll be open for business the morning of the 20th. So we're right down to it. We had a walkthrough of our final kind of punch list, and they're all very minors, like put a bumper here so that the handle doesn't hit the wall, a number of things like that. So with that, I would request or recommend approval of substantial completion so we can start the paperwork. There will be a 30-day period where the subcontractors can file claims and such, and after that 30 days, if everything's okay, the retainage would be released or available to be released.
Do you not have to move the equipment back from where you're at?
Yep, that'll be the early morning of the 20th, and actually Monday morning, next Monday, which was what, the 8th, I think, at 6:45 we were having Altus has hired a professional photographer to come in and take photos of the location. So actually at 11:15, 11 o'clock this morning, the maintenance staff unboxed the majority of the new furniture we purchased. So we purchased, I believe, 2 or 3 new beds. The existing beds will move down the morning of the 20th. So depending on what is happening the night of the 19th, when we moved to the temporary place, we showed up at 5 o'clock and the nurses had most everything moved at that time. The patient count was pretty low. So the plan on the 20th would be is any patient that's left up here their care will be completed here on the second floor. Anybody new after a certain time will be accommodated in the new ED.
And no downtime?
No.
I'll make the motion to approve the substantial completion of the ERI.
First, we get a second?
I'll second it.
The first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries.
At what time would you want the board at the open house?
Probably at like 4 o'clock. I think we're
You said all those times and I kind of missed.
Yeah, no, 2 to 4 is employees for us to go through. From 4 to 6 is public. As of right now, I don't believe there's any formal ceremony.
Oh, well.
we're gonna we're planning to do a ribbon cutting right at probably 4 o'clock. So we would, there'll be some comments made at that point, but so we would like you there for that part of it.
That's good. Okay, didn't have anything else, Jeff. We'll go ahead for the consideration approval of monthly financial statements by Christie.
Okay, so this is a September year-end month-end financial reports for the 1 and 3 months ended. So another busy month in outpatient visits. We had over 5,080 in the outpatient visit clinical areas. The ER was 534, 110 surgical procedures. The physician's clinic was 3,645. Behavioral health was 1,118. We had an average daily census that was a little higher, which was 8.11. And we had 11 births in the month of September. So we had $5 million in operating revenues, $4.7 million in operating expenses, and $130,000 in non-operating. So we had a net income from all sources of $462,088. If you look at the year-to-date, you can see that outpatient visits were up over 15,000, which is 5.8% increase over last year for the same 3-month period. Emergency room visits were up 0.5%. Surgical procedures are up 6.7%. Physician clinic visits are up over 11,000, 5.1% increase. Behavioral health is at over 3,300, almost 3,400, which is up 2.9. Average daily census is about 0.4% higher. It's had some additional swing bed and observations this year from last year. We have seen quite a few more babies. We're up to 35 compared to 16 last year, so that's a 118% increase. I think November here is going to be, I don't know what October was, but November is going to be pretty busy here from what I hear. So our revenues from operations are up 17.5% to 15 million. Our operating expenses are up 8.5% to 14.2 million. Our non-operating is up 106%, which is $877,000. And so for our net is 1.7 for the first 3 months of this year compared to 119 last year. So considerable Medicaid directed payment is a big part of that, but you can see all of our services have also increased. So it's a good sign. We do have the 4-year comparison there. As you can see, we just continued to grow pretty well year after year. An outpatient visit, emergency room has stayed pretty consistent. Surgical procedures saw that dip in 22 and 23, but we are back up to pre-21. Physician clinic visits pretty much stayed consistent there. They ebb and flow a little bit. Behavioral health clinic visits are pretty consistent. Average daily census, we've continued to see that decline in our average daily census, which is industry standard pretty much right now and kind of insurance driven. Births, there you can see we went from 20, 27, 16 and now up to 35. So again, that's a good sign. And our revenues have just continued to grow year after year, and expenses, of course. But you can see we've been pretty consistent there. We're really having a good year so far this year with the assistance of a lot of things going right. So any questions on the financial reports or?
All right. If no questions, can I get approval for the monthly financials for the month of September?
I'll move the approval of financials for September.
Second?
First and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Now Christie will talk about the amended capital budget for 2025.
So, so we had approved, and the board had approved a $2.5 million capital budget for this fiscal year 25. If we go ahead with the purchase of a robot, that was not really anticipated in that budget. So we would need to amend that budget for the capital budget for fiscal year 25 to $4 million to accommodate the purchase of that robot. So it kind of, I mean, if you want to do it before or after, I mean, it's on the agenda to do it now, but.
I think let's talk about the project first, the robot first, and then we'll circle back, I guess. If that's all right with everybody?
Yes, I would agree.
Okay. Well, we won't forget Jill. Let's talk the 2025 health plan renewal.
You can run that for me, Jeff. Yep, every year I just like to show you guys a year-over-year trend of our healthcare costs. And you can see they're rising year over year. And so this is a 5-year snapshot. And so we're looking at, over the last 5 years, year over year, between a 7 and about a 13.5% increase year over year in our healthcare costs. So what you're looking at are the net hospital costs. This is minus the employee costs, and it's what we report in our financial statements. On the far right, the fiscal year 24-25, this is projected, which is why I have it colored in a different way. And it's our first year in the MIWA, the Multiple Employer Welfare Arrangement. And that is where our costs are currently projecting at the end of this calendar year, just given the first 6 to 8 months worth of claims data. So I wanted to share that with you. I usually tell you how many people we have enrolled in our plan. So we have about 80% of our eligible employees currently enrolled in our health plan. So employees find this to be a very important benefit to them. And our goal is to cost contain always, but with year-over-year trending increases, containment is really important to us. Moving on, so the average cost of employer healthcare cost in the U.S. is actually expected to increase about 8 to 12%, and that's carrier data from our actuarial analysis that we receive. So carrier data is like the Wellmarks, the United Healthcares. So overall costs are trending 8 to 12% higher in 2025. Myrtue's claim data were forecasted at about 12.1%. And I want to draw your eye down to that chart down below, the percent Myrtue increase, because what I'm showing you for 2025, there is a 9.6%. 9.6% is the actual claims forecast. Myrtue also has to contribute to a reserve under the MIWA, and that's a requirement under the State of Iowa Division of Insurance that we kind of front load this reserve, so if anything were to happen to the plan at the end of the year, we'd have enough money to pay the runout claims. So 9.6% is really where we're trending in terms of claims data, but when we look at it in total overall, Myrtue's costs are going up 12.1%. Does that make sense? So the reserve that we've been paying into the last 2 years, that is expected to be fully funded or funded to the point where it needs to be per the Iowa Division of Insurance by the end of this year, this calendar year. And I think this is important to know because had we not formed under the MIWA group, our total increases would have been projected to go up about 11.4%. So, when you look at it year over year since 2020, we're not that far out of line with the increases that we're seeing, but it's still an increase nonetheless. So we would like to cover the reserves as well as a higher percentage of the overall increase that we're seeing for 2025. There are no plan changes, so we're not making any changes to the PPO, the high deductible, or the new point of service plans that we introduced to members last year. As well, there's no dental or vision changes. We've been able to kind of hold the line on costs there, so we're really not seeing an increase in costs for either of them. And as far as accident, critical illness, cancer coverage as well, we do have some rate guarantees, so we're not anticipating increases for those supplemental plans either. So with that said, these are our total costs that we're anticipating for 2025. Just over $4 million for medical alone, about $115,500 for dental. So in total, we're looking at nearly a $4.2 million, and that is to Myrtue. So these are the employer costs. So we are requesting from the board that Myrtue's cost share, that we cover 13.5%. We'll pass on 7% of the cost share to employees. And the reason that we're taking on that higher, again, why we're suggesting Myrtue takes on a higher amount is, that's really important to us for future recruitment and retention of employees. Employees look to their health care benefits as a reason why they choose Myrtue. And so we would suggest covering that share at 13.5%. And that is that amount that you have in front of you right there, the $4.1 million.
Might have missed it, Jill, but what was it before? 13.5?
what was it before this
Yeah,
year?
what percentage? Yeah, I'm just-
So last year was 7, we had a 7% increase that we cost shared equally among employees.
And that included funding the reserve last year.
Looks like last year went up 11.6%. When you look at this chart, it's 13.5 and then 11.6. The difference of the.
Our costs.
year, yeah. Go up. So it's like 3.5.
We have budgeted for the 13 and a half plus, so we are budgeted for it.
Can you restate what you said back, Mike, and missed that part?
Well, the question was what the increase was as from the previous year to this year was about 11.6%. This year is 13.5%. So just a little bit more of an increase there.
I don't get the math. So like if you're at 13 and a half, the hospital's paying 13 and a half, the employee's paying 7, that's 20% of what?
20.5% increase, is that?
So, no,
But the increase is only 12. I don't follow that, I guess. Can
okay.
you help me with that?
Well, it's difficult because the reserves are included in that overall increase. And because we are choosing to take on a higher percentage of the overall increase.
But there, I mean, our 13% is based on our previous cost, and the employees' increase is based on their previous
So the net
cost.
between the two premiums.
Yeah, it's actually at 12%. The reason we're going up 1% on what the hospital's paying, and it's going down a lot more for what the employee is paying as a percentage increase is because we contribute a lot more towards it. It's not a 20% increase, it is the 12.1% increase. When you look at all costs, employees' cost and employer cost, it's a 12.1% increase. And that includes the funding of the reserve as well.
And we don't know that number. Do we know what that number of reserve funding is?
It's the 2.5%, which is,
Okay.
I don't have the math on that, but
How many people are in the NEWA group?
There's 8 RICHA hospitals are included in the MIWA.
I think there's about 1,800 lives now among all the hospitals.
Mainly Iowa?
Yeah, it's all Iowa.
What's the reserve that they're going to try to capitalize?
It's 10, I think it's 10% of the annual claims. So it's, I don't have that number in front of me. but
Yeah, you're right. Division of Insurance requires 10%, but I don't know what the total aggregate MIWA claims are.
Well, like you wanted a motion to approve the percentage increase for the insurance plan.
As
Yes.
Joe presented, yeah, for 2025.
So the 13.5% and the 7% is what I will move to approve that. Does that make sense, Rick? Okay.
Right there. Right.
Is that first? Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
First and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign, motion carries. Okay, next, with Barry here, we got the CEO report, consideration of approval of the capital purchase of the robotic assisted surgery Da Vinci model.
All right, so I'll just give you some background on why we're talking about this today, and I'm going to have, there's several people in the room that have been involved in this. Nicole's going to talk a little bit, and maybe Karen and Laura and Christy will talk about the finances. We have Ryan Omvig is here. He's our representative from Intuitive and the Da Vinci equipment, and we've had a lot of conversations over the last few months with Ryan. So just giving you some background on this, the last 2 general surgeon recruitment efforts that we've had, which goes back about 2.5 to 3 years, we've talked to or interviewed or had visits with with 10 different general surgeons, and 5 of them requested or were likely going to require robotic assisted surgery for them to come here. There was a sixth one that didn't require it, but had been trained on it, and very recently had been trained on robotic-assisted surgery. So, and then if you just look at the last recruitment effort, starting back in spring of this year, the first 2 general surgeons we talked to both required robotic-assisted surgery. So that was kind of the point where we really felt we needed to analyze and understand, the Da Vinci system, robotic-assisted surgery, kind of in general. So we started talking with Intuitive. We got a hold of Ryan and had some discussions to start that off. We looked at the financial, did a financial analysis on that, and Christy's going to talk about that here in a little bit. Had a whole bunch of internal meetings with IT, facilities, revenue cycle. We did have a group of surgery nurses. Nicole and a couple other surgery nurses went to a hospital in Pender, Nebraska, which is a small critical access hospital that has had the Da Vinci system in place for about 5 years. And we've also talked with the medical staff about this, and the feedback that I got from the medical staff was that if it makes sense financially, we should move forward with it because it's kind of the way things are headed in the future. So that kind of leads us into me kind of turning it over to Nicole. I would just say if we choose not to go down this path of robotic surgery, we'll go ahead and we'll keep trying to recruit a general surgeon that doesn't want robotics. Anytime we bring anybody on, we want that to be a long-term relationship. So it kind of puts in question out in the future how soon we would be able to make this move. So this is really the right time to be having this discussion as we're trying to bring on a general surgeon. Obviously, we want to be relevant in the future. We want to be progressive and really look at what's best for the hospital and our patients down the road. So with that, turn it over to Nicole.
All right, so I think I've met most of you. I'm Nicole Oler, Director of Surgery and Specialty Clinics. So Barry brought this to us early in August to look at the potential for a robotic-assisted surgery program. So I'll have Jeff kind of run the slideshow. So on the next slide, you'll see robotic-assisted surgery is a surgical procedure that uses the robotic device. It has a mechanical arm, and that allows the provider to perform the surgery. So you still have some small incisions and things like that, just like you would laparoscopically, but as you'll see at the end of this, you'll see why the robot is so much better than that. The surgeon controls the robotic arm, and they view things through a screen, and then there's controllers. And you still have other team members in the room as well. So the robot is not a replacement for the surgeon, though. You don't just put the robot in there and on your way. So next slide. There are the 3 pieces of equipment there that make up robotic-assisted surgery, so we just wanted to get those in front of you so you could see them. And then on the next slide, you'll see a potential room setup there. So as you can see, there's a little bit more equipment than a typical laparoscopic case that we have, but again, you have the same personnel in the room. All right, so this is just a quick video taken from YouTube. That kind of shows the functionality of the robot and how it works.
We've integrated what we've learned from our customers and what our design teams have invented, and now we're proud to present the Da Vinci Xi. The Da Vinci Xi is our 4th generation of Da Vinci system, and it has in it over 20 years of learning how to enhance surgical performance by creating a natural extension of the surgeon's eyes and their hands.
This new product features fast 4-quadrant surgery, substantially improved vision, and is a scalable platform for all our advanced technologies. The overhead boom allows the arms to rotate as a group, and this frees up valuable space inside the surgical field, allowing unobstructed access to the patient. This is all enabled by smaller, lighter arms with extended range of motion and improved reach inside the body.
Making the system much easier to use was a primary focus of developing the DaVinci Xi. Docking is facilitated by a laser targeting system. Point the endoscope at the surgical site, press the targeting button, and the system will configure itself into the optimal position for the procedure.
The new endoscope is much easier to use. No more draping, calibration, white balance. You just plug it in and go. With this new architecture, you can put the scope in any one of the arms, and it gives you a lot more flexibility and setup.
At Intuitive, we strive to create the safest, least invasive option for surgery. And we believe deeply that minimally invasive surgery should be the standard of care, and we work hard every day to make that a reality.
So that was just a very brief overview of how the robot works. Ryan will get more in depth here in a couple of minutes, but the DaVinci Xi was launched in 2014, so it's been out for quite some time, and it's the most widely used robot nationwide today. So moving on, we'll kind of look at Myrtue's pillars and how this robot might affect those. So from a growth standpoint, right now, if we were to recruit a general surgeon to use the the robot to perform surgery, they would perform cholecystectomies or the removal of gallbladder, hernia repairs, and then appendectomies are able to be done with that as well. Our current OB/GYN physician, Dr. Kelly Anderson, has been trained on a robot in the past. She would use this for some of her hysterectomies that she completes here. And then right now, our current urologist would not use it for prostatectomies, but it's definitely a point of growth in the future. And when we did visit Pender Community Hospital in Pender, Nebraska, they have a urologist that comes on site and performs prostatectomies at their facility. So that would be an option in the future. From the people standpoint, for provider satisfaction, it would improve that. It's great precision and control for them and less physical. Same for staff, less physical for our team members that are going to be assisting the surgeon with this, and then also just they get to use the latest technology. And then patient satisfaction, kind of the same as well, latest technology. It is less invasive. Laura will kind of talk about that, and there are some improved outcomes that Laura will discuss as well as we move on to the quality aspect of robotic-assisted surgery.
Yeah, so as we were kind of looking at all of this, we reviewed a lot of literature, kind of focused in on two main ones, one being a peer-reviewed article and the other one from the American College of Surgeons. And from a quality and outcome standpoint, we really looked at or learned and focused on the fewer conversions to open surgery. So what that means, if you're doing like a laparoscopic surgery or a robotic surgery in comparison, there's going to be fewer conversions to needing to go to that open surgery. The incisions will be smaller. That's kind of related to the micro size of the instruments. Reduced tissue trauma, that is also related to the smaller incisions, and then less pain and discomfort. One thing we kind of learned is that there was fewer opioid prescriptions. This is a big CMS measure, a big push related to that. That's kind of related to the less pain and discomfort. And so those opioid prescriptions are not always needed at the amount that they are needed for other surgeries. So that was interesting to learn. Fewer complications, including blood transfusions, faster recovery, decreased length of stay, readmissions, infection risk, and decreased mortality were all kind of noted within those articles, and the references are listed below of the two that we used. So those were all things that we noted within those articles and through our research.
And then as far as service and community, this would obviously be an added service line using the robotic-assisted, or having the robotic-assisted surgery program. We would have the latest technology, and then I threw geographic area in there just because in Ryan's presentation, it'll just kind of show the lack of robot kind of in our area, so it would be a great option for us too. Yeah. So with that, I'll hand it off to Ryan here.
Sure.
Appreciate it. So my name is Ryan Ombeg. I'm with Intuitive. We make the Da Vinci robot. We also have a product called the Ion, which does lung bronchoscopy and is a really good minimally invasive platform in itself. But the Da Vinci has been around for actually a long time now in the world of tech. So we've been around really in the market since the early 2000s. It was starting to be developed in the 1990s. But today what I wanted to do is just give you an overview of what the technology is. They've done a really nice job so far of going into that. I'll go into that a little bit deeper. The clinical applications, so what procedures are being done with the robot, and then as well market data and trends in Da Vinci across the United States, but also more locally here in Iowa. And then why Da Vinci for critical access hospitals. So moving on to the clinical applications of this, we really started in the early 2000s targeting cardiac surgery when this product started coming to market. And it's still used in cardiac procedures today, but what we found is that over time we got pulled into a lot of different procedures across different specialties. And the first one to do that was really urology. And so prostatectomy largely in the United States had been done open for the majority of cases for a long time. And so by pulling in the robot, they found that they were able to make an open procedure become a minimally invasive procedure in large part now. And I'll go into a little bit kind of why that is and why surgeons use the robot. But later in the around 2008, 2009 timeframe, we started taking off in gynecology, particularly benign hysterectomy, but also malignant hysterectomy as well. And so nowadays, urology and gynecology are both highly penetrated in robotics. They both use robots to a very high degree. But with the system that you're looking at, the Da Vinci Xi system came out in 2014, that was designed with a lot of input from general surgeons. And so since that time, since this new robot, the Xi, came out, general surgery has really been the driver of growth in Da Vinci surgery across the United States. So it's used in large part in general surgery now, and then also colorectal procedures. Bariatric surgery has grown significantly in the past couple of years, specifically in the state of Iowa. And it's also become fairly highly used in lung resections and thoracic surgery. So it covers a lot of different specialties and is used quite a bit in all of those. This slide, I think, is particularly important to this hospital because what this shows is, in the dark blue is Da Vinci surgery on the bottom. It starts on the bottom to the left there. The gray is open surgery, and the top, the light blue, is laparoscopic surgery. So this is since 2012. You can see that Da Vinci surgery is the only modality of surgery that's been growing. And so we actually surpassed open surgery in around 2020, and then late last year we actually surpassed laparoscopic surgery. So this is really the way soft tissue surgery is done across the United States now. You see over on the right-hand side there, that's a big factor for this hospital as well. So 47% of that growth has been from surgeons who came out of either residency or fellowship having already been trained in Da Vinci surgery. So they're finding that that's the best way they do surgery, and when they're looking for where they're going to go, they're looking to make sure that the hospital has a robot. Nicole did a really nice job of this earlier, but there are three main components that sit in the OR. On the left is the patient cart. That's the one that attaches to the patient and where the instruments go in and out. The middle is the vision tower that sits by the bedside, allows the staff that's working on the case to be able to see what's going on, but also has things like cautery that you can connect to, and that's really where a lot of the computer is stored with the system. And on the right there is the surgeon console, and so that's where the surgeon will sit. After the patient cart is docked, they'll go to the console, and that's where they sit to do the procedure. And they look in through that console, and you can kind of see there's some hand controls that they use to operate. And the hand controls really mimic what they do with their hands, which is really, kind of goes back to the name of our company being Intuitive. And the reason why this platform continues to grow year over year is because of the main pillars that help surgeons deliver better outcomes. And so those are vision, 3D HD vision. So when the surgeon looks in that console, they have a 3D view that gives them full depth perception. Some surgeons would tell you that they can see better on the robot than they can see doing an open procedure. It's got 10 times magnification and things like Firefly fluorescence imaging, which are just new laser tools that help the surgeon be able to make better decisions during surgery. It's very precise, so like I said, it does what your hands do, but it does have motion scaling and tremor filtration as well. It also gives the surgeon a wrist. So if you think of laparoscopic surgery, when they operate, the stick does opposite of what they do with their hands. So it's actually kind of counterintuitive. Whereas the robot does exactly what they do with their hands, and it gives them a full wrist to be able to do things like suture and more precise dissection and things like that. And one thing that's often overlooked with the system is the enhanced ergonomics, and Nicole talked about this a little bit, but laparoscopic surgery really wears on surgeons over their careers. You see a lot of surgeons that eventually get certain types of orthopedic injuries throughout their career. And so this setup allows the surgeon to be comfortable and at the end of the day feel better when they go home to their families. And it's also, we've heard from a lot of surgeons that are late in their career that it's actually helped to extend their career by being able to sit down and do surgery. Looking at the outcomes, this is what our company strives to improve, and this is the why behind what we do is the outcomes and why it continues to grow da Vinci surgery as well. So this was a meta-analysis looking at 182 publications covering the 7 procedures over on the left across different specialties since 2010. So in the dark blue in the middle there, what you'll see is decreased conversions, 52% less likely in that study versus laparoscopic surgery to convert from lap to open. So what that means is they start out doing the procedure laparoscopically, and then they end up having to open that patient and give them a bigger incision because it just becomes too challenging laparoscopically. We find a lot of surgeons have said that the robot helps them get through really challenging portions of the procedure to keep that procedure minimally invasive. Also has impacted things like less blood transfusions, lower 30-day complications, lower length of stay, so patients staying in the hospital less days, and then lower 30-day mortality. Where it was comparable was in 30-day readmissions, laparoscopic, open, and robotic were all similar. And then where it favored open in laparoscopic surgery was the time it takes to do a procedure. And so what we found, though, is that, from that time period, 2010 to today, a lot of surgeons were going through what we call the learning curve. And so there is a learning curve in robotic surgery, but it's not an incredibly long one. But what we find is that as surgeons progress through their learning curve, they're actually able to bring their procedure times down, and a lot of surgeons can get pretty comparable to their laparoscopic procedure times. Never probably going to catch up to open. Those are probably the fastest cases, but efficiency-wise, a lot of surgeons are able to get pretty close to their laparoscopic times. This is a look at the United States. So over 5,253 systems installed across the United States. And if you look over on the right, you'll see that growth chart. The dark blue is general surgery. The teal is gynecology, the light blue is urology, and then the gray and purple that are small segments up top are thoracic surgery and ENT, ear, nose, and throat. But what you see, though, is that, especially since 2019, general surgery has been driving the adoption of robotics across the United States. Really seen the most growth there. And as of last year, it was about 60% of the da Vinci surgeries that are done in the US are general surgery. And from 22 to 23, robotics and da Vinci robotics in a whole grew almost 20%, 19%. If you look at the state of Iowa, it's almost the exact same thing trend-wise. So looking over at the right, general surgery has been driving it, and it's once again right around 60% of what's done in the state of Iowa on the robot is general surgery. 20% growth there as well, 22 to 23. And there are 50 robots across the state of Iowa. You can see on that map there where they're located. And as Nicole was saying, you kind of see a larger space around the area here where there aren't as many robots. Of those 50 robots, there's 32 hospitals that have robots in the state of Iowa. So a good number of these hospitals have multiple systems as it continues to grow. And then if you look over, Omaha is not included here, but there are about 18 robots in the Omaha area as well. That circle there really kind of shows the opportunity here to be able to provide provide that type of technology, whereas kind of surrounding markets possibly don't offer it yet. And it also makes it so the patient, if they do want that type of care, doesn't have to drive to Omaha or drive to Des Moines. They can be treated right here at home, which is obviously a big thing for health equity. This is a look at critical access hospitals in the United States. Really, we've seen quite a bit of growth over the past couple of years with critical access hospitals as well. So you can see 5 hospitals in Iowa, several in Nebraska, Minnesota, Kansas, and Missouri as well. We continue to see that number grow too. And just in summary, why are critical access hospitals bringing in robots? So the number one reason, which Barry was talking about, is surgeon recruitment. Surgeons are looking for this technology. They feel like this is the best way they do surgery in their hands, and they're looking to be able to offer that wherever they want to spend their career. Reducing patients migrating, like I said, patients not having to leave the market to go have these types of procedures done in the larger markets. Improve patient outcomes, number one for us as a company, and that's where we continue to innovate and bring new products to market. The reduced need for opioids. We do see quite a few surgeons who, some of them are not prescribing any opioids after something like hernia or hysterectomy, things like that. And if they do, it's a very small number of pills that they're having to prescribe to patients. We've seen from a good number of our hospitals, not just critical access, but we have seen in the critical access spaces the ability to drive a higher commercial payer mix at the hospital as well.
What? I don't understand that part.
And that's mainly due to patients doing research on the technology and doing their own research and finding out that it's an option, and then being able to travel and things like that. Strategy to keep beds and resources available, like we said, lower length of stay on some of the bigger procedures, and even on some of the smaller procedures, we see patients being able to get out of the hospital, even if it's just hours before other modalities of surgery. And then ease of staffing strain. So we've found the ability for the need for less staff in the OR. So if you have a circulator or a tech that you can free up to go do something else at the same time as a robotic surgery is going on, that's obviously a great thing. And so the reason for that is because if you watch a laparoscopic surgery, oftentimes they'll need somebody to hold the camera, but they'll also need somebody who's passing tools and those types of things. And so with robotic surgery, there's less need. There's obviously no need for somebody to hold the camera since the robot does that. So that eliminates the need for a staff member in that position. You can free them up to go do something else during that case and be more productive. And then cost-based reimbursement, obviously different at every critical access hospital, but that's been a reason to look into providing health equity and providing this type of technology in a market like this. And that's all I have. I'm open to any questions. Barry, obviously, want to be cognizant of time, but.
Any questions for Ryan?
Do you see any reduction in malpractice insurance because of the precision piece of it?
I don't have any data on that, but what I'll tell you, so I talked a little bit earlier about something called Firefly technology, and so that technology is mainly used in gallbladder procedures, but it also can be used in colon procedures, and what it does is in gallbladder procedures, it lights up the ducts. And so that's typically where, in general surgery and a gallbladder procedure, that's where you got to be particularly careful, and you need to make sure that you're doing the right thing around the ducts. And so that technology gives them a lot more confidence, but it also allows them to capture that, whether it be a photo or a video, to prove that they were, doing their due diligence and making sure that everything was safe during the procedure. And it's the same thing with the colon procedure. When they're reconstructing the colon, it allows to see where the blood flows at in the colon and where that stops. Because if you divide that colon where there's no blood flow and then you put it back together, you're going to have more likelihood of a leak from that colon. So that type of technology allows them to have a lot more reassurance for those types of things.
So what are we getting into the finance? I guess maybe before I mentioned that I had talked to the medical staff and put this in front of the medical staff a couple times, and I don't know if you want to speak or have any comments regarding moving to more of a robotic assisted surgery? Putting you on the spot a little bit, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think it basically comes back to surgeon recruitment, as you mentioned. I think our medical staff here, our goal is to keep ourselves younger. It's obviously important for the ongoing success of the health system and you know, for trying to bring in younger surgeons. I think this is something that we need to do, and as Barry, I think, has already told you, now's the time to do it because we're trying to recruit a younger surgeon. So it is an investment in the future and will help us as a medical staff replace ourselves as time goes on here.
Is this the unit that they're trained on in medical school then?
Yes. Yeah, the Da Vinci Xi system that we're talking about today is the most broadly used robot. And this would be like if you go to UNMC or you go to Iowa Methodist or Creighton, this is the system that they operate on.
What's the shelf life on it? Like, how relevant do they last? Like, are you going to come back in 2 years and say, oh, it's outdated, we need to spend another $1 million?
Well, so we don't. No, it's a great question. We don't quote the life expectancy of the system, but I can give you kind of ideas from the past. So our last generation of system before this one was called the SI. It was our third generation. That came out in 2009, and it went end of life this year. So 15 years for that technology. And with that, though, we did give our customers a 5-year notice on that. And so we didn't just come out just a month ago and say, we're done with this at the end of the year. We gave a 5-year notice to be able to plan around that and be able to make the transition to a different technology. And I don't know what that looks like in the future, but I do know that we're still developing products for this system now.
So like somebody that would have had that unit, would they have had to do upgrades on it, like over the course of that time frame?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, a lot of folks had upgraded before they had to, just because the newer systems are offering, you know, better tools for better outcomes and things like that. Yeah, you'll have the option. I mean, we do offer a trade-in value and things like that.
What's the turn time from like one surgery to the next surgery? Do you have to like sterilize everything down? Can you do multiples in one day?
Yes, so we do multiples in a day. You just, you have the accessories to use. Like if you saw on the video where they're snapping instrumentation in and out of the robot arms, you would have enough to do as many cases as you want in a day. And then the robot stays in the room in one of the OR suites, and we just turn the room over, next patient goes in, and so forth.
Yeah, just as an example, I was at another critical access hospital in Iowa last week, and they did 3 procedures in a day. They were done by about 3 o'clock.
Like the time frame, purchase to implementation, what are we looking at there?
So that changes for us. You know, every month it seems like it's different, but it's typically somewhere. Unfortunately, the window that I can quote now is anywhere between 2 and 12 weeks from order to being able to deliver the system. This time of year, we're usually pretty ramped up, and so hopefully on the lower side of that. But it does vary a little bit. And then as far as implementation goes, you know, we provide what's called a clinical team. So you have a dedicated representative who will come here and train staff members. And we also have what's called a Genesis team, and their whole entire job is to train new staffs on how to use Da Vinci systems as well. And so that can be done in a 1-week time period, the training. But our clinical representatives are dedicated to making sure that you have the service that you need to be able to offer these procedures on a weekly basis too.
Is that live training or like simulated training?
For example, a staff member, tech or a circulator would first do some online courses. And so that gives them a little knowledge of what they're getting into. And then we would do hands-on training in the operating room. It's usually a 1 or 2 day training where they spend usually about 3 to 4 hours in the operating room doing it in services, hands-on. And then before they ever do a case, they'll do what we call a dry run. So almost like a rehearsal of the case to make sure everyone's comfortable with their roles.
All right. Christie, you want to talk about the finance side?
So this is just, again, a list of what is included with the purchase of the Da Vinci system. As Nicole and Ryan have both gone through, it does include, like if he's talking about the Genesis training, and there are some costs for, well, our OBGYN has not been, has been a while since she's been trained on it. So we would do some proctoring and training for them, and that's included in the cost. Installation and delivery is included in this pricing too. So the purchase price, we have looked at multiple different scenarios and felt that outright purchase of it is the best scenario for us at $1,450,000. So we would be purchasing it outright, but either way, no matter what method we would have used for the purchasing or leasing it, there is a service agreement that we will also enter into for the service and updating of the system. Again, it's PMing, repairing the system, basically some assistance in the cost of repairing it if it should be something that we did incorrectly or didn't use it properly. There are some cost shares there, but so this is an operating, the service agreement is an operating expense that we would budget every year in our budget, and the actual purchase of the equipment is a capital budget, and then would be depreciated over the life of the asset according to CMS guidelines. Talking a little bit about what we went through a process of looking at what our market share is in the area and what it would cost, and because we are cost-based reimbursed, you don't technically on a one-for-one basis get higher reimbursement for robotic surgery over regular surgery, but the cost of that equipment goes into your cost, so then Medicare-wise you get it kind of spreads that cost around, so you do get a better cost reimbursement that way, as Ryan had stated also in there. Based on that information, it looks like from what the surgery types that we do here, if we could increase our surgeries, one surgery per week, we could cover the annual cost of the depreciation, the supplies, the service agreement.
So the $1,450,000, that is with the sterilizer, the drying cabinet, that's the complete package deal of all the equipment, or the equipment, the accessories are addition to this $1,450,000?
Yes. That is completely from a different vendor and something that we would bring forward in the future when we get closer.
And a lot of that benefits the surgery department more in general and not just related to the robot.
So we wouldn't necessarily have to approve those dollars today, we're just would approve.
I wasn't planning on, I was hoping to have two separate motions, one for the capital and one for the service agreement.
How many surgeries do we do that would use this in the future?
Per year, I mean surgery, so any gallbladders we do, any hernias, any appendectomies, hysterectomies would be dependent on what Dr. Kelly Anderson feels like she needs to use it for.
Right.
It's not that she would use it on all of them.
Do you have an amount?
I don't have that number right in front of me. I think, like what Christy was saying, just doing one extra each week does seem very feasible, considering we're looking at our numbers from right now when we, don't have a consistent general surgeon. I think that is doable to add one per week, especially when she looked at the market share and kind of some people are going outside of here. Not necessarily for robotics, but absolutely could be because they can get it done robotically. So.
Yeah, and this calculation was based on I don't have that piece right in front of me, I have numbers, but it was basically the number of surgeries that we do that we would use this robot on. So the increase we would want to be the increase to be the ones that we would use the robot on, and what we get reimbursed from, like the gallbladders and the appendectomies, and Dr. Kelly Anderson's in-house and already has the trust of her patients, and so she's sending some out. So those would be ones that would be very likely to stay in pretty much
And then the prostatectomies down the road potentially are another surgery that we could do here.
So do we market Robbie the Robot then, Jill? We do? Okay.
That we do.
Very much so. Okay. I don't know what his name is.
We haven't named it.
The employees do that,
Yeah,
survey.
have a contest.
Popularity contest.
So we did have a discussion with the Building and Grounds Committee regarding the robot, as well as the Finance Committee. We also talked about this at a previous board meeting, I think a couple months ago. So, getting into some of the more detailed finance questions, we did have some discussion about that at our Finance Committee meeting. Just so you know, there's been quite a bit of legwork that has happened, a lot of meetings already leading up to this board meeting. So.
We all, just another point is looking at our current RHC process program project. We have looked at the cash flow process, and it's not really going to affect that.
We can handle it.
We can handle it. Yes, we can handle it with our current cash flow. So that's all been analyzed too.
You ready to entertain a motion?
I think we are, unless there's any questions. Can I get an approval for the capital purchase of the robotic assisted surgery Da Vinci model?
I'll make that motion.
First, do I have a second?
I'll second.
A first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign, motion carries. Next, we'll do the consideration approval of the 5-year service agreement for the Da Vinci model.
I'll make that motion.
First
Second that.
and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign, motion carries. We'll circle back now to the consideration of amending the capital budget for 2025.
Correct.
So if there wasn't any other questions there, Christie, kind of explain what was needed there, and can I get an approval to amend that capital budget?
So moved.
First and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign, motion carries.
Good job, everybody. There's a lot of work that went into this thing in a very short period of time.
Thank you. I feel good.
So do I. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's a neat deal.
Yeah. It's a big deal for us.
I really want to be that.
You don't want to be the guinea pig?
I'm not volunteering. I am not volunteering, but okay.
There are a lot of videos on YouTube for it, and one of them I watched, they peeled a grape and sutured it back up.
A grape?
A grape.
Nice. And we give shots to oranges and grapefruits, and that's how we train, is on fruits and vegetables.
I was telling Barry there was a guy in Des Moines that they had on Channel 8 News the other night that had done his 1,000th surgery on it, and he had hoped to be at his 2,000th surgery next year. So he's cranking them out. That's. I mean, we're not going to get there, but
Yeah.
still, lots of people are using it.
Awesome.
Just the precision is
It's pretty
going to
impressive.
be amazing.
Yeah. Do you have anything else, Barry?
No, that's it.
Anybody else? We'll kind of get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First and a second, all in favor?
I'll second it.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries.